AskReddit. Waiters, what Valentine's Day disasters have you witnessed? Don't forget to subscribe. Let's jump right into it, basement friends. Not a waiter, but in my strip club bouncer days, we had one of our regulars get suited up and bring flowers in one Valentine's Day to try and woo one of the dancers. It did not work. Pro tip, if every time y'all hang out it involves you giving her money, she is not into you. I worked at a pretty high-end Mediterranean bistro. My second Valentine's Day there, it was probably the busiest night I'd ever worked as a server. We had reservations that booked basically the entire restaurant, including the bar and the patio from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. No walk-ins were to be seated unless a reservation was canceled or someone with a reservation didn't show up. Most of the customers were pretty understanding, either waited or simply left. One dude, however, kept pushing and pushing, asking every 10 minutes how much longer until he is seated, constantly saying that he is a regular customer and how his date is going to be there at 7. He got there at 6. We insisted that once a table was available and all other customers before him were seated, he would get a table. But because the amount of reservations, we couldn't guarantee he would even get a table. At about 6:50, the guy loses it, fast walks up to the host stand where the reservation book is, grabs the reservation book, and practically runs out the front door. Now everything is going to complete shit because the only copy of the reservations for the night that is barely half over is gone. Two of the owners ran outside to follow the guy and try and get the book back, but by the time they get out there, he had already left the parking lot. Even better, 2 hours later, chaos is still running rampant and the dude shows back up, saying he has a reservation for 2. 3 of the 5 owners, all brothers, escorted the dude and his date out to the parking lot and banned him from the restaurant permanently. They even took a picture of him and posted it in the window saying, "Do not serve this man." Edit. If anyone wants to use this for a sitcom, feel free. Just let me reprise my role as the waiter and we'll call it even. All I can picture is this dude thinking that he can get his way by essentially reenacting the restaurant version of that joke urban legend with the university student who finishes his exam late. And when the proctor won't accept it, the student asks, "Do you know who I am?" Then, when told no, he grabs the stack of exam booklets and flings them into the air and runs out. Did he expect no one to remember him after doing something that memorable? He wasn't lying when he said he was a regular customer. We recognized him before he even stole the book. He was just a serious dick. There was a note in our reservations that it was an engagement. They wanted champagne, a specific seat, bunch of other stuff. The server comes up to the table with something like, "So I read we're celebrating an engagement, congratulations." Confusion from the woman, glaring from the guy. He hadn't proposed yet. She ruined it. When I proposed to my fiancé, I kept it very small circle of people knowing so nothing could get spoiled. My grandfather didn't know till the day of because he has dementia. Her best friend is still mad I never told her, but she ruined a birthday surprise months prior and I couldn't trust her after that. My wife's best friend at the time stopped being friends with my wife because I didn't involve her in my engagement plan. Good riddance. She was honestly the worst. It did hurt my wife's feelings because they had been friends since grade school, but the friend was just awful, and the complete antithesis to my wife. I never understood it. These two were on a date, and the guy goes to use the bathroom. The girl just up and leaves after he went to the restroom. When the guy came back, he sat around for a while until asking his waitress where she went. She replied with saying that she left. The guy then asks the waitress if she would go on a date with him. The waitress said no. 0 for 2 in one night. Damn. They came in at lunch the day after, so it was pretty empty, but it was still for a Valentine's Day date. They were both pretty nice at the beginning. The guy asked for a picture and whatnot. As the meal went on, The dude got progressively drunker, and by the time I brought the check out, the woman was gone. When the dude gave me his card, he said, "I'll give you a bit of advice. If you're taking a girl to break up with her, do it at McDonald's and not an expensive restaurant." He proposed. She said no. He cried and tried to change her mind for 20 minutes while she sat there stony-faced. She finally got up and walked out. He paid in tears and left. Not waitstaff, but I used to work at the front desk of a hotel. One Valentine's Day, I was working the night shift, and this woman comes down with a cut above her eye looking like she just went a few rounds in the ring with a boxer. Woman starts sobbing and asks us to call the cops, which we do immediately. Turns out this girl's boyfriend just beat the shit out of her during a fight. From what I could tell, this probably wasn't the first time. So after the cops show up and haul the dude off, my manager offers her a different room on comp, as we need to leave the guy's stuff where it is for him to come pick up the next day. She accepts, and I go up with the woman to help her collect her stuff and move to the new room. There were a bunch of bottles of alcohol in the room, and she donated them to the front desk staff. I got a bottle of Hypnotic and some vodka. Manager got a bottle of Patron. Cherry on top of everything, the dude's wife called later that night saying someone had stolen his card as he was out of town on a business trip. Never one to defend an abuser, I told her where she could find her husband. Fun times. I had a section, one Valentine's Day, that had a marriage proposal, a 40th anniversary, and a breakup all at the same time. The breakup was the worst. The guy brought his high-class date a gift, a mini ceramic bear holding balloons. He presented it when I was at the table, and she looked at it like it was a hot turd. I just knew this was not going to end well. She left at the end of the meal, and must have said something because he stayed at the table for another 40 minutes, head down and crying. I felt bad. He saw the celebrations going on at the other tables. Not a waiter, but I was a pastry chef at a big resort in Cape Cod. We got a special order from this guy who was coming in for his anniversary, Valentine's Day. He wanted his dessert to have, "Will you marry me?" written on it so he could pop the question when it came out. He called ahead to the front and back kitchen. Even came in himself that morning to make sure it was good to go. The whole crew was behind him. We had cooks coming in all night to ask if it had happened yet. I wrote the inscription on the plate and dressed it to the nines, with gold leaf and expensive chocolate. I'm taking a picture of the plate just before it's set to go out and notice our head waiter come in with a weird look on his face. He says plainly, "They don't need it." She broke up with him before entrees hit the table. Had a couple sign divorce papers and cry at brunch. If it's amicable, that's when you get shit-faced together. I was eating at a fine dining establishment, Chili's, several years ago. In the next booth was a really young guy who had a big bunch of roses on the seat next to him. He kept looking at his watch, looking at the roses, and popping open the ring box for a look at the ring. He did this for half an hour or so, then began calling and texting someone, presumably his girlfriend, over and over. As we were waiting for the check, he hands my wife the roses, mumbled something, and walked out. Poor guy. Edit, I don't consider Chili's a fine dining experience. My wife and I had done some shopping and stopped off for a burger and beer afterwards. Walking back to my dorm room once, a guy was carrying roses. I think this was around Valentine's Day. I don't remember. And he handed one to me. Made my day, because it had been a crappy long day. But I wonder, what kind of day had he been having to be handing out roses to strangers? A guy did a backflip and asked a girl to be his Valentine. She declined. I walked up to him and asked if he was fine. He said it took him a week to perfect. I feel for this guy, man. Hope he found someone. Please subscribe. The channel is still very young, and that little thing would help immensely. See you next time, friends.